Good morning, everyone. James Lynch here doing a quick reaction video to the news that PFL MMA has now merged with MVP MMA. This according to the PFL's account here. Try and move the screen over here a little bit so it doesn't get cut off. So you can read it here. It says most valuable promotions in the Professional Fighters League have officially merged together under the MVP banner. We're bringing world-class boxing, MMA, premium live events, athlete development, and global content distribution into one fighter-first organization. The future of combat sports is here. Welcome to MVP. So PFL rebranding again. If you remember, they were originally World Series of Fighting. Now they're going to be MVP MMA. And this isn't super surprising in the sense that, well, a couple things. We've heard about this for a while. Shout out to Front Row Brian. We'll talk about him in a sec. He was way ahead on this whole news. And the other thing is obviously Jake Paul's been involved with PFL before. Francis is with MVP MMA, or at least he was for his last fight. There's a relationship there as well too, with him being with PFL. I think this is good for combat sports. The more resources they can put together, you're never going to beat the UFC. The UFC is the strongest brand. It's no different than over in the wrestling world. There's going to be no, company that's going to overtake WWE. But I think this is still good for fighters, giving them more opportunities. And I like the fact that, PFL now going to be using their resources on the MMA side because they've done a very good job over the number of years, over the last couple of years. Now merging with MVP, who's done a pretty good job with the boxing side of things. So here's more detail here from Mike Heck, my good buddy over there at MMA Fighting. We'll go have a quick read here. It says they officially merged to create a new global combat sports platform. So yeah, it's not only a promotion, but they'll be doing a platform. They announced Thursday morning, companies have merged together. Front Row Brian. Again, Brian had this, when did he have this? This was back in, July 15th. So the couple weeks, he says there's some rumors that PFL could rebrand as MVP MMA. So he's very much in the know with this stuff. This is why you got to give him a follow. The newly merged will be led by co-founders and board members. Nikisha Bidaran, Jake Paul, and John Martin will serve as CEO. I've actually really liked John Martin with PFL. I had a chance to interview him a month ago. Really good guy. Very forward-thinking, good with the fans. A lot better than Don Davis, if I'm being honest here. Okay, so let's read the quote here. It says, since launching MVP, our goal has always been bigger than just building a boxing promotion. It has been to build the future of combat sports. In less than 5 years, MVP has become one of the most influential and culturally relevant brands in the industry, producing some of the biggest events in combat sports history, elevating women's boxing to unprecedented heights, and bringing millions of new fans to the fight game. I'm not going to read this entire quote here. Don't want to take up the whole video with that. We started MVP to disrupt the broken model. Here's the Jake Paul part. We'll read this. We wanted to give fighters fair pay and bigger modernized stage to become global superstars. Joining forces with PFL accelerates that vision by a decade. We now have scaled the platform to give today's fans what they want: elite talent mixed with culture, lifestyle, massive social velocity. MVP was always bigger than me and bigger than any other fighter, bigger than any one fighter. MVP is an inevitable movement that needs to happen for the athletes. So, we know Jake Paul's been outspoken against the UFC. Obviously Friday's PFL event is actually a really good one. You've got Archie Conglin and Usman Nurmagomedov, although we found out this week that Usman's only got one fight left in his contract. I think he's probably going to the UFC next. But we'll see. So yeah, I'm just curious how this goes. I think, a lot of people, just looking at the first MVP card with Rousey and Carano, it was different. A lot of people, on paper were like, this is a lot of older fighters. I didn't, personally, I watched the card, but, Rousey and Carano, a lot of people are like, okay, you're just really trying to, live off the past with that matchmaking. Mike Perry, Nate Diaz, a little bit of that too. Nate Diaz has not, been that great of a fighter for a couple of years. And then Ngannou and Lynch was just a huge squash match. The Parnasse fight obviously was good for him. He gets in the UFC because of that. So I'm curious to see the matchmaking, because I will say PFL has done a good job of matchmaking as of late, as far as building up their own stars, making competitive fights. That's what the fans want. The model of bringing in old fighters and trying to do that. I know Rousey and Carano got big numbers, but that's not a sustainable model, and they just don't have enough fighters to build that way. So I think the matchmaking under this new MVP MMA will be much better, and they can obviously combine resources. And listen, the pay is going to be better too, so that might have more incentive for the fighters to come out there and do that. The thing I'm curious with, PFL has been talking a lot. They've been very outspoken about how badly this ESPN deal is and how hard it is to watch fights. I know here in Canada, I believe we can watch it on YouTube, but does that mean they're going to move to Netflix? Because obviously their MVP MMA event 1 The prelims were on YouTube. Broadcast was on Netflix. If they're on Netflix, that's huge. That's very, very big for PFL. And that might be just worth it for the merger alone to get on that platform. So I think there's a lot of things at play here. Again, nothing in this article or in the press release that I read mention anything about a broadcasting partner or platform. We know that, again, PFL wants to get away from ESPN because they basically treated them poorly. So yeah, I just think this is great news. Like, again, in a time where, there's less and less resources for fighters as far as competing and all that. I think this is a good move. And like I said, and I'm sure most of you watching this will agree, I don't think they can make cards like this. Like, again, like having like a Jason Jackson fight on the card. I think Jeff Creighton was a late ad, but like getting guys like Jason Jackson on here, that's like a veteran who realistically should be in the UFC. Getting a Parness on the card is good. I don't mind the odd fight with like a notable name in there. Like, for example, if like, I'm just spitballing here, but like, for example, if like a, Yoel Romero, who I know is boxing Darren Till, if he wanted to come and have like a one-off fight in MVP MMA, I'd be okay with that. He's not at that point where it's like, I don't want to watch him fight anymore. But like, I don't need to see a Tony Ferguson on this card. I would like to see a mix of like, I shouldn't even say a mix. I would like to see more of a heavy prospect / normal PFL card. And if you want to sprinkle like a Mike Perry on here, I'm fine with that. But don't rely heavily on like the old Scott Coker Bellator model, which is just, let's put older fighters on and, everyone will watch. I don't think that's a sustainable model. I think the way to build this thing is to build up new stars the way that Bellator / PFL built up Usman and Magomedov, the way they built up Dakota. I think that is the way to go when it comes to having a viable second option. Again, to be clear about this, because there's going to be UFC fanboys in the comments, oh, this sucks, because there's people that for whatever reason just have to defend the UFC at all costs. Having more competition, and when I say competition, I don't mean like they're going to overtake the UFC, but having more options for fighters is a good thing. You're going to get fighters to get paid more. You're going to get more opportunities for fighters. That is a good thing all around. And then add this into the fact that Scott Coker's got his promotion coming next year. So good for the fighters. Again, and I like the variety as well of like boxing, MMA, like it said in the press release here, premium live events. I mean, it might be other stuff as well, like concerts. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of different stuff here, but yeah, this is good news all around. Good to see, PFL, because like I said, I think PFL is, and Alex Behunin had a great article on MMA Mania about this, that, PFL has done a good job this year of their cards and, the pacing and the matchmaking. And I think, again, with the new CEO, it's been good. It's just they haven't had the proper platform with ESPN basically treating them like, tossed liver, so to speak. And now, merging here, I think they'll get the proper distribution they want. So big moves all around. Love to see this. Good for the sport. And we'll see what type of, and again, with Jake Paul's poll, like we'll see what type of celebrities and stuff they can get attached to this and just, again, promoting it better. Like I said, they're not going to overtake the UFC, but it's good to have other options for fighters that, need to fight. And it's a tough industry. So I want to know what your thoughts are on the comments, or I want to know what your thoughts are in the comments, I should say. I almost screwed that up. Let me know your thoughts on this. What type of cards do you want to see going forward from PFL and MVP? The one thing I should say in this is they don't, I don't know when the official merger, I mean, the merger's already happened, but like, is the next couple PFL events, is that going to be MVP? I don't know what's going on with that. So I'll do more videos on this when we get more updates, but great news here for PFL and MMA coming and joining forces. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.